Did you know that there were two efforts to keep slavery? Yeah, yeah. Despite the fact that the Republicans did not want to keep slavery. Yeah, yeah. There was the Crittenden Compromise and the Corwin Amendment. Yeah. And we are going to talk about the Crittenden Compromise first. Yeah. Now, in 1860, after an unsuccessful attempt to prevent civil war, Senator John J. Crittenden from Kentucky proposed 6 constitutional amendments and 4 resolutions. Yes, he was being extra. He was being real extra, okay? But he was like, you know what? It's my last year in Congress. I can afford to be extra. Give me this, right? Right? Now, the compromise would have permanently legalized slavery in the United States Constitution and make it unconstitutional for future Congresses to end slavery. Yeah, yeah. Now, let's look at the amendments and what was it? The resolutions. Yeah. Now, the First Amendment said that states north of Missouri could not have slavery, but states south of Missouri could. Congress could not abolish slavery in places under its jurisdictions, like a military post. Okay, so if a military post was in a slave state, it could not abolish slavery. Okay, it could not abolish slavery in the District of Columbia as long as it existed in the adjoining state of Virginia and Maryland and without the consent of the citizens of D.C. Yes. Congress could not prohibit or interfere with interstate slave trade. Yeah. Congress would provide full compensation to owners of rescued fugitive slaves. No future amendment of the Constitution would change these amendments or authorize or empower Congress to interfere with slavery within any slave state. And that's the important one. No future amendment of the Constitution could change these amendments or authorize or empower Congress to interfere with slavery within any slave state. Y'all can never change your mind. So there were 4 resolutions, okay? One of them being that fugitive slave laws were constitutional and should be faithfully observed and executed. That all state laws that impeded operation of fugitive slave laws, the so-called personal liberty laws, were unconstitutional and should be repealed. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 should be amended and rendered less objectionable by the North because they did not like the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. By equalizing the fee schedule for returning or releasing alleged fugitives and limiting the powers of marshals to summon citizens to aid in their capture, and the laws for the suppression of the African slave trade should be effectively and thoroughly executed. Really, the resolutions were like, stop getting in our way when we retrieve runaway slaves. That's what they were saying. Now, for the Republicans, this was a no-go. Yeah. They didn't want slavery. They didn't like slavery. They were like, are you out of your mind? Are you insane? Okay. Lincoln, um, even though he ran on like no expansion of slavery, he gestured toward a possible constitutional amendment protecting slavery where it currently existed, right? Where it already existed. But when it came to expanding slavery, he was like, absolutely not. We're not even negotiating this. No. And the Southerners were like, I'm sorry. No, no, no. But it did not stop the compromise from being introduced at the Peace Conference of 1861. Okay. Now, the Peace Conference of 1861 was a last ditch effort. Okay. They're like, please don't leave us. Please don't leave us. Please don't leave us. It was one of those things, okay? It was a meeting of more than 100 politicians. I believe it was in February, okay? Washington, D.C., yeah. Final formal effort of the states to avert the start of the war. But it was a no-go. The compromise failed. Yeah. And can you guess why it failed? Can you? It came down to slavery. Yeah. It came down to whether or not slavery was going to be allowed throughout all the Western territories and future states. I know a lot of people from the South keep saying it's about states' rights. Say it with me. The states' rights to keep slaves.